Hello and welcome to the it-agile podcast Einfach gelöst. That translates to solved in a simple way, or a more subtle meaning could be being relaxed. And I'm very happy to have Kent Beck here. Hello, Kent.
Hello, Stefan. Pleasure to see you again.
Maybe there's one or two listeners who don't know you already. May you introduce yourself?
Sure. So in my long career, some of the things that I've been involved in introducing are patterns for software development, work I did with Ward Cunningham, um, the XUnit family of testing frameworks came out of work that I did in Smalltalk. Um, the documentation of refactoring, like here's this catalog of refactorings, was something I was involved in. Test-driven development. Once I had a testing framework, I started to have weird ideas about testing, so TDD came out of that. Extreme programming was something I invented for a project, and then people took it in lots of interesting directions from there. And since then, some things you might have heard of is the 3X model, explore, expand, extract, about how different development and management and everything is depending on where your risks lie and how that evolves. And I spent 18 years writing a book on software design, which has turned into multiple books. And the first of which is Tidy First, ? About individual practice of software design and trying to understand it at a deeper level, psychologically, sociologically, economically, and technically. Like, why is software design interesting? So that's my most recent. Well, not most recent. And then most recently, I've spent the last year on augmented development using these fancy new genies that grant your wishes, except it's not really what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been doing most lately.
Okay, thank you. So you already mentioned you invented extreme programming?
Yes?
But I'm pretty sure some similar kind of lightweight development happened before that.
Oh, absolutely. If there's an original thought in extreme programming, I apologize. I was trying to chronicle the very best software development activities that I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Lisp world certainly did this kind of very interactive, very short feedback cycles, close contact with customers. That had been done already. Ward Cunningham had a process he called episodes, which was similar in a lot of ways. And the process was similar to the process that when Ward and I were programming together, we had a very social process focused on delivering functionality, which is seems like kind of a contradiction for people who tend to be on the spectrum, but turns out you can make social interaction safe even for people who find usual social interaction very uncomfortable.
And then extreme programming emerged in this Chrysler, I think, project.
Yes. So in 96, I was asked to help with a project. I suggested restarting the project. They said, okay, but you'll have to be in charge. And I tried to not be in charge, but I gave the team a lot of aspirations. And that's where that word extreme comes from. What if we did the things that we know really matter, but we did them as intensely as we can imagine? Now, it turned out we weren't anywhere near the limit. So we thought 3-week cycles was blazingly fast. Turns out that 1 week is a really good cycle time and 1 day is a really good cycle time for different sets of decisions. And a few hours is a really good cycle time for even smaller grain decisions. And now we're getting to minutes for those kind of smaller decisions to be made. But there's still a cycle going on at the larger grain sizes of a day, a week, a month, a quarter, a year. There's a reason that human beings mostly agree on those cycle times.
I met you first in Italy in 2000. There was this conference, Extreme Programming and Lightweight Methods.
Yep.
You started a voting about renaming extreme programming to excellent programming.
It could be. I tried lots of
Okay.
experiments.
Okay. But there was no majority for the renaming.
And honestly, I might not have listened even if there was, but it's a separate set of issues. Yeah, that word extreme, I think I took a lot of criticism for it.
Mhm.
And if I'd had a better alternative, I would have gone with it.
Mhm.
But I was working with no marketing budget. I had to find a word that was both catchy and accurate, honest.
Mhm.
And that was the best one that I could find. And there were people who just wouldn't look at XP because of that. The shortening it to XP was a conscious decision if you didn't want to call it extreme programming because people would laugh at you, you could just call it
Mhm.
XP. And so I've called it XP for years and years now, and I seldom use the full name.
Some weeks ago, I asked the question if we have to understand the extreme and extreme programming in a way like extreme skiing, it would only be suitable for very few companies. Since most people won't be able to do extreme skiing.
Yes and no. At the limit, the very best teams applying extreme programming are doing stuff that looks impossible.
Mhm.
You couldn't possibly be deploying 40 versions of financially important software every day. It just, it just doesn't make sense. But it does make sense if you've done all the preparation
Mhm.
to be able to do that. The other part is, can you get started with improvement? In a way, extreme programming is a rubric for improvement.
Mhm.
Improving individual skills, improving social skills, improving collective skills, improving the organization that embeds software development among its many other activities. It's a way of pointing out where friction lies and giving you means to address that friction. If you do that for a year, if the team gets together and they have the support from executives and they have a vision and they improve solidly for a year, they're going to be doing amazing stuff. They're going to be much more effective. Customers are going to be much happier. Defect rates are going to go much lower. Costs are going to go down. Unplanned work is going to go down. If you look at that team after a year, you could say, oh, well, only the best teams can
Mhm.
possibly do this. But you should have seen them when I got here.
Mhm.
So, uh, I mean, in my cynical old age, I would say something like some people would rather have an excuse not to improve than to go through the unpleasant experience of admitting how messed up things are today and then doing something about it, even though that's not a certain linear step-by-step path.
Mhm.
And if you don't want to improve, don't improve.
Mhm.
But don't blame, that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Mhm.
That it is absolutely possible for people with ordinary skills, ordinary software development skills, to achieve extraordinary results.
And then in the year 2001, there was the Agile Manifesto. You're one of the authors. How did
I'm the first author, Stefan.
you're the first author?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the authors are listed alphabetically.
Yeah.
I did not, in fact, write. I think I added one word to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was sick as a dog. I had a bad sinus infection. I was on some heavy duty antibiotics, and I hardly remember anything.
Okay.
Now, y- I've had several people approach me and say, "Oh, we need a manifesto for augmented development."
Mhm.
And what I tell them is, it took us 15 years from the first OOPSLA conference. So that's when people started talking about, hey, we've got these objects and we have a new level of flexibility that we've never had before. How are we going to use it? That question started in 1986.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until 2001 that we were able to articulate an answer. So it took 15 years.
Mhm.
Augmented development has been here for a year, 2 years. We just don't have the answers.
Mhm.
And that's fine. A manifesto right now wouldn't help because we'd be focused on the wrong things because we just don't know enough. The only way we're going to know enough is by trying a whole bunch of stuff and in community discussing what seems to work. Sharing back and forth. What of my experience applies to your context? What about your context maybe invalidates the generality of my experience? Oh, I can't do that because blah, blah, blah. Oh, I didn't know that was important. Well, how about this? And back and forth. And if we do that for 15 years, then we'll be able to write the next manifesto. People will say, we need a manifesto today. Boo-hoo. You can't write one
Mhm.
that's going to have any effect
Mhm.
because we just don't know what's universal and what's particular yet. I mean, it's kind of good news, bad news. As I was saying, what a great way to end a career on this massive revolution in how we do this thing that I love doing so much. And nobody knows. That's what I tell everybody I talk to. Well, how should we blah, 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 blah? Nobody knows. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows.
Mhm.
So how are we going to find out? By doing a lot of stuff that doesn't work and talking about it.
So the Agile Manifesto wasn't really the start of the thing.
No, it was the culmination of a long process. And
Mhm.
workshops, a bunch of stuff was happening behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Private conversations, workshops, visits back and forth, lots of experimentation, writing up lots of stuff, teaching things in school and seeing what stuck and what didn't. All of that stuff was going on behind the scenes as a setup to the manifesto. It wasn't like, okay, let's get smart people in a room and we're just going to meditate and then we'll write down what comes to us. No, there was tons of hard work and people want the cake without the baking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want the cake too, but I gotta bake.
What happened afterwards with the industry of software development?
Nothing. We're at the status quo ante. The kind of here's how I think about it. If you look at your development process, you might think, okay, well, I changed the development process this way, that way. I'll test like this. I'll deploy like that. But those development activities are really a projection. You know, Plato's cave. Plato has
Mhm.
this metaphor. You're in a cave. There's a light behind you. All you see are shadows,
Mhm.
and you're not seeing yourself, but you're seeing the outline of yourself. And I think the same is true of software development. If you go and look at development processes, they're the shadow that's cast by whatever the power structure is. So if you're in an organization where you can say, this is going to take 6 weeks, and somebody can say, no, it has to take 3 weeks or else, if that's okay behavior, if that's the power structure, then you're going to cast a certain set of shadows that won't care about defects until later. Hopefully it's somebody else's problem. That where the developers are going to say, well, he's going to cut it in half, so I'll double it. And then the manager says, well, he's going to double it, so I have to blah, 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 blah. Right? Those activities, which can be absolutely bizarre. Like if you walk into that situation, you're like, well, why don't you just tell the truth to each other? Well, we can't do that. So without knowing what the power structure is, any changes to the development process are only going to be temporary because it's going to self-heal. And that's what the Agile Industrial Complex did, is the power structures didn't change. And so development now is pretty much what it was like 25 years ago. Cycles are shorter, sure. Provisioning servers is a lot easier than it used to be, sure. But that balance, I talk about the features versus futures. How much are we going to invest in the next feature, or when are we going to invest in the next feature versus investing in the optionality of the system? Things like what used to be called technical debt, paying down technical debt. I prefer the positive, I'm a positive guy, so I prefer the positive explanation of that, to talk about, okay, now we have more things we could do in the future, even though we don't have more features. That balance really hasn't changed much. You have the same set of complaints now that we did 25 years ago. That's my frustration. That computers could be doing so much more than they're doing now. They could be creating so much more value than they're creating now. And part of me just still doesn't understand why we haven't taken that path. But I'm not going to, realistically, we're where we are and we're doing what we're doing. And I'll privately whine and complain about it, and then I'll get back to work.
The Agile Manifesto was about software development. Some people try to transfer it to product development, just replacing software by product. Others start talking about agile organizations. The problems you described with the power structure may correlate to the agile organizations. Would it be useful to talk about agile organizations, or just keep agile for the software or product development?
Well, I think it depends on your goals and purposes. My mission has always been to help geeks feel safe in the world. Because when you have this kind of skewed experience of the world, it's really easy to feel unsafe, even in situations where you are safe. And it's easy to act in unsafe ways, even though you have alternatives which would be safer, like YOLOing code into production versus writing tests. You could be safe. Even if somebody's yelling at you, you could still be safe in that situation if you choose, if you've built that habit. In English, you'd say, stick to my knitting. I have a focus. I'd stay with my focus. And I'm also more comfortable talking about things that I have personally experienced than speculating. The few times I've broken that rule have not ended very well. So I'm happy to talk about specifics and let other people generalize. Should other people generalize? Should they have what's the equivalent of pair programming for sales? Or I don't know. Fine. Try it. Who knows? Might work well. Might be a disaster, but you can't predict. So the only thing, when you can't predict, the only thing to do is experiment. I'm happy if other people do that. I've had the extreme programming book called a cult business classic that CEOs read it, discuss it. Some CEOs, maybe kind of odd CEOs, but it's fine. But that's not a me thing.
Mhm.
I tell my stories. I explain how I understand the world. I try and make that useful to people who are more or less like me, and I'll let the generalization fall to somebody else. Now,
Mhm.
is that a mistake? I don't know. I mean, I'm happy. It keeps me out of situations. Here's what I don't want to have the incentive. Can I curse on your podcast or okay. I
Yep.
don't want to have an incentive to talk out of my ass.
Mhm.
I don't know how that one translates, but
Yep.
I'm sure the activity is universal. And
Mhm.
I just don't want to like I don't want to be on a stage in New York City wearing a custom suit with so far, yes, absolutely. But then have somebody ask me some business question and and I feel the urge to make up some bullshit answer. I just
Mhm.
don't want to put myself in that position. You know, we can talk, you say, well, what level of optimization do you use for when you compiled with GCC, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, fine. We can
Mhm.
dig into that. And if I don't know, I'll just say I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I just don't want to be in the position where my best response is to make some shit up that is going to harm somebody else's life. I'd hate to do that. So I stay out of that.
Let's come to present and future. You already talked about AI and augmented development. What do you do there, and what do you think will bring the future?
First, people are saying, oh, this is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened. You know, since the invention of silicon, this is the biggest change and it's not true.
Uh-huh.
We've felt the sand shift underneath our feet before
Mhm.
in development. Like when objects hit, it was like, oh, all the rules have changed. We don't remember that because that's ancient history. But it absolutely took the set of certainties that we had about development leading up to that, whether they were true or not, and blew the whole thing up, and people
Mhm.
didn't know what to do. What I've observed is the people reacting the best are either people who've been through times of change like this before, or the people who just don't know any better. So I think now is a wonderful time to be a junior programmer
Mhm.
because you're going to learn so much faster, or at least you have the opportunity to learn so much faster than we did. You have more
Mhm.
community, you have better tools for it. The Genie is an outstanding tutor if you double check the answers.
Mhm.
So you can say, well, how does this work? So if you have curiosity, oh, it's heaven. Well, turn this into a haiku for me. Sing it to me as a folk song. Draw a picture as if by Monet. Like however you understand the world, you now have a genie that's willing to explain the world in those terms to you. So the juniors are reacting well. The people kind of on the far side of their career, like me and maybe you too,
Mhm.
also seem to be reacting by and large, reacting well, like, okay, let's dig in to do it. The people who are having the most trouble are people with 10 to 20 years of experience who've
Mhm.
grown up in a world where, yeah, you can always improve, but the solutions came from a known menu. You had a menu. You know, we have too many defects in the production. Oh, refactor like this, test like that. Like we know what to do.
Mhm.
And they learned that menu and they learned how to pick items off of that menu and apply them. But they never operated in a world where there wasn't a menu.
Mhm.
And figuring out that menu, that's what I did. That's what you did too. And, I was happy to have a menu, but I'm also really thrilled not to have a menu anymore and to be like, well, what do skills do? What's an MCP server do for this? How can we recast this old thing that people thought was obsolete into this new content? Wow, fantastic. So
Mhm.
I'm trying all kinds of stuff. I'm building fundamental data structures. Like I don't know how many times I've implemented the B plus tree now,
Mhm.
but high performance versions of it, like library quality, both in performance and in reliability. And I just keep trying it over and over again because it's a complicated algorithm. It's easy to get wrong. Performance really matters. So I'm doing, yeah. How many cache misses do we have if we tune this parameter like that? That kind of that kind of programming is really uh, speaks to my heart. And I love doing it. So I'm able to do that kind of make decisions at that level in a way that I haven't been able. But I'm also trying just ridiculously ambitious projects like re-implementing small talk
Mhm.
from scratch. Yeah, why not? I want a persistent small talk within memory transactions and multiprocessing. Sure,
Mhm.
from scratch. New bytecode set. Here we go. And I mean, my part of my trouble, I've always been as the late Reverend Jesse Jackson put it, a tree shaker and not a jelly maker. I like getting
Mhm.
stuff started more than the putting the finishing touches on things. And it's so easy to start stuff now. So just tracking the tides outside my window, build an app for that. Sure, why not? Never built an app before. Fine. Never looked at Kotlin before. One of the astonishing things is how little programming languages matter. Oh, you
Mhm.
want me to do this project in Rust? Okay. I would 2 years ago, you'd say, well, but the project has to be in Rust. I'm like, whoa, not my thing. Now, that doesn't scare me. After I spent 100, 200 hours in Rust, I'm going to know a lot because I have that habit of learning.
Mhm.
So I look at Rust code, I'm like, oh, what is the single quote bracket? What does that do? If I don't know, I ask. And so
Mhm.
I learn very quickly if I'm not just focused on how much Rust can I crank out. I don't care. I care how tickled my curiosity is.
Years ago, there was a movement called polyglot programming. The idea was using the most suitable programming language for a certain task, and that you would need several programming languages. From my point of view, it was too challenging. With AI support, that could become a reality.
It absolutely could, but also choice of programming language doesn't have the leverage that it used to.
Mhm.
Which, is I was deeply invested in the small talk world, still love it, and I'm trying to bring it back. That's how crazy I am about it. But how much does it matter? Mm. There's so much else that matters.
Mhm.
So, yes, we may have multiple languages, but those languages may not matter all that much.
Mhm.
I've got a thought experiment for you. What if we invented a language that the genie could manipulate very, very well, much better than our current languages,
Mhm.
but human beings couldn't read and understand it?
Mhm.
Would we use that language? Yeah, exactly. I love thinking about it because it really
Uh,
bugs me.
mhm.
It's like I know what the answer is, and I really don't like it.
Mhm. Ah,
Of
okay.
course, we'd use it, but I really don't like that. And as long as the genie's given us contradictory answers, and as far as it has come, last week I had a is May 3rd a Wednesday or a Thursday. Two different genies gave me two different answers, and I asked one, help me convince Gemini that it's actually a Thursday. What should I say? Here's the prompt. And I copy the prompt over to Gemini. Like, no, it's absolutely a Wednesday. You tell ChatGPT, blah, 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 back and forth and back. It's kind of fun for a little while. But even basic stuff like that, as amazing as some of the things the genie can do, is still a genie, and it will grant your wish in its way, not in your way.
You call it augmented development? What exactly does it mean?
I'm the programmer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making the programming decisions at a high level. Project management, task breakdown, tracking decisions, looking for mistakes, looking for cheating. The genie will just delete the contents. Will just delete the contents of tests.
Mm-hmm.
So that it can, I call it finger guns. You betcha, boss. Yeah, we're all finished. Like, nah, hang on. So I'm the responsible party. I haven't handed anything off to any. I don't expect that, this myth of write me a profitable app. Chug, 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 ding. Like, no. No, I mean, I'm building a database here. There are trade-offs to be made. I can have assistance in making those trade-offs. That's what I mean by augmented. The genie is helping me to make better decisions, and then dealing with the details of the consequences of those decisions. So for me, it feels like it's like an exoskeleton. If I could lift 50 kilos just with my body, I put this mech suit on, and now I can lift 10,000 kilos. But the impulse to pick something up is still my impulse. I'm not giving that up. Now, and then I have arguments with the kids these days. They're like, "Oh no, you're hanging on to too much control," and that might be true. But that's how I see it. That's the framing I put around it. Programmers are still programming. I'm still making. It feels like programming. I'm still making decisions. I'm still learning about the same things. I mean, what got me into programming is this mechanism is so complicated. Like, I can show you. I have my dad, when I was a kid, my dad brought back the Burroughs 6700 reference manual. And the Burroughs 6700 is a fascinating architecture because it doesn't have registers. It has a stack in hardware, implemented in hardware. And I read that cover to cover when I was a kid. I understood nothing, but I was just absolutely fascinated with this mechanism that's so complicated. And I still am. I still have that same sensation of, wow, all this stuff is going on behind the scenes and I don't understand it. And I want to understand it because the degree to which I understand it, like that moment of insight feels fantastic to me. And once I have it, I can use those insights to have more power to open up possibilities for myself. And that all feels exactly the same, except now I got this power suit and I can build a database from scratch if that's what I want to do.
And the XP practices, are they still valid or are they changing?
There's nothing there that I wouldn't still do. Test-driven development, more important than ever. When you have a genie with no conscience, with trained to get to task completion. Yeah, finished, boss. And not really not think about the future. It's more important than ever to have feedback loops and feedback that's persistent over time. One of the things that's kind of, I think, is the wrong direction people are going is they're trying to get genies to work longer and longer autonomously,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to using the genie to figure out how to integrate more and more frequently. So I have this thought experiment called Limbo that asks, what if, people talk about having 10 PRs per day or 20 PR. What if programmers had 1,000 PRs per day? What if I extract some function, I give it a nice name, and that appears instantly in your copy of the code? Why not?
Mm-hmm.
What if it goes directly to production? I can't have broken anything if I use automated refactoring. So Limbo is an experiment in how small can we make changes that go to colleagues. In this case, would go to other agents, that go to production, that goes into everybody's pocket all around the world. We could use the augmentation of the genie to help make those steps be smaller, instead of thinking, well, let's have bigger and bigger batches. We know what bigger batches lead to. Merge hell. Like queuing theory, nothing about the genie changes anything about queuing theory. So, um, it might be uncomfortable, but I think the direction I'm going in is exploring how much more extreme can we make extreme programming, not how much less can we make it and still survive.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares?
Okay. So we will end up with even more extreme programming.
I hope, yeah, at least some people will.
Mm-hmm.
But the feedback loops need to be in place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole. People have this vision of one shot. I'm going to make a prompt, and it's not going to be what I want, so I'm going to make a bigger prompt. I'm going to start over from scratch. I'm not going to take a thing and modify it and modify it and modify it. And I just, like, if it works, it works, but it just doesn't scale very far. So I want to figure out how to use the augmentation of the genie to help me make, here's a thing that's valuable. I modify it. Now it's more valuable. Now I take that thing and I modify it and it's more valuable. Now I modify it. Maybe I don't add any features, but I make it more option rich. And I keep looking up because there's birds flying by my office. So, so that's my goal. And I think at the limit, that is going to be much more extreme. The cycles will be shorter. The size of batches of changes will be smaller.
Do you read and understand all the generated code or just the tests?
Depends on my goals.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly feel the temptation to just, and then I go and read the code after a while and I'm, this is a disaster, or it's a lie. So that's another one of my projects is called Wait What?
Mm-hmm.
For when the genie goes, I want to say, wait, what? I want to see what you just did. And the genie's actually pretty good at summarizing changes, especially if you use a different genie than the one that generated the code, because the one that generated the code's likely to lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I use a different one, say, hey, well, what just happened? Critique this. You're an expert in whatever. Critique this. What changes do you want to make? So I feel the temptation not to look at the code. And I learn less when I give in to that temptation, which I do sometimes.
Thank you for these insights. Where can people learn more about augmented development?
I write at, so a newsletter that's my main business now. It's called tidyfirst.substack.com. And you can read about stuff there. I give talks. I like giving talks to internal conferences if you're interested in that sort of thing. My latest book, Tidy First,
Mhm.
is my thinking about software design. I'm working on a follow-up called Augmented Software Design that recasts software design in an augmented world. It's still a test of human relationships. Software design
Mhm.
is. Yeah, I wish that it was just coupling and cohesion and blah, 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 all that stuff. But it really isn't. The bigger conversation around software design is when do you do it and how much do you do? And how do you break a large software design investment up into small pieces? Those questions still remain whether you have a genie involved or not.
Mhm.
So that's the best place to catch me is at the newsletter.
Did we miss any important stuff?
Oh, sure.
But do you know which?
That's the key question. Um, the prime message to everybody is nobody knows. And if you've never been in a position where nobody knows, it can be really uncomfortable, but it's okay.
Mhm.
Because the solution is action, reflection, and community. Same way we got to the relatively stable software development of the last 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
That came out of a process of action, reflection, and community. And we can do it again. In fact, there's no other path towards having a set of principles and practices that are adapted to the new context that we use for development.
Okay, thank you very much, Kent, for your time and your insights. I liked it very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Stefan.
Okay.
It's great talking to you again.
So